Welcome to the Intercut Podcast, the weekly show going over the TV, movies, and entertainment that people can't cut away from. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, take my heart when you go, it's Arturo Zurita.
Man, you should have had one for Hereditary. I literally just realized we always do this at the beginning. We always do this at the beginning. That's a little more creepy this week.
It's in theme.
Yeah, no, I'm happy, excited to be here. You guys know who I am. Introduce our guest. Introduce a very special guest that we have today.
Very special guest joining us from the Drumdums YouTube channel. You may recognize him. Thanks for joining us. It's Lee McCoy. Say what up, Lee.
What is up, guys? Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. Big fan of both your work. And yeah, I'm humbled. Glad to be here.
Man, we're really glad to have you on the podcast. We've known Lee for a few years, going back doing this YouTube thing, and he's got a great channel over on Drumdums. Talks a lot about classic horror, modern horror. If you are a horror junkie, if you are into Hereditary, which we're going to get into a little bit later,
we had to get him.
Lee is a good guy to go and subscribe to. So make sure you check out the link to his channel down below. In a little bit, we'll talk about how modern horror films differ from classic horror films, as well as Hereditary and the stacked cast assembling for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But first, we're going to start the show the way we start every week here on Intercut. Guys, what you been watching? Should we do a quick little Hereditary catch-up?
You already know we've all seen it together. I'm curious because I have been talking about Sundance that I love it. I'm done talking. I'm parched, okay? I am like a certain character in the movie. My throat's just done. You two, I know nothing about if you guys have seen it. I've not checked your Twitters to see anything. I've been bombarded there, so I'm curious to know, did it live up to the hype that I've been saying for you guys?
I mean, I've been a little scared to tweet anything about it, given just how, like,
spoilery and bleak a lot of this is. I thought it was phenomenal. Lee, I'm curious to hear your reaction.
Lee,
What's
the
funny
man
is, like, I'm still percolating it. Like, as soon as I saw
Perfect,
it,
that's what I need.
Punched right in the gut. And then, I don't know, I went through, like, an emotional change while watching the movie. I still have some little minor issues, which we'll get into, but...
yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's A24, right? So overall, I knew that I would come out of this a changed man, and I'm a changed man. So yeah, it's definitely worth discussion.
Lived up to the hype for you?
What's that?
Lived up to the hype for you?
I'd say yes.
I love how this is like one of those movies, one of those horror movies. You don't go, "Did you like it?" You go, "Are you okay?" Yes. Oh, then great. Then you hated it. If you come out normal, then that's not a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I've been really struck by is that even the people I've seen who don't necessarily think that this is like a great movie have been affected by it. They at least think there's quality and craft there. And I think a lot of the things that Ari Aster, I believe is the director, is doing in this film are just like undeniably unsettling and like getting under your skin. It's very, very great horror filmmaking. I'm excited to discuss it in more detail with both of you later in the show when we can get into some of the gruesome spoilers. Do you have anything else on Hereditary, or should we get into what else we've been seeing?
I don't know. Lee, have you been catching up on anything else? Here's the point. Literally just if you have something...
Well, I mean, just about Hereditary, I was going to say it is the one movie this year that you will need a hug after watching. So.
1000%.
Yeah, I definitely... I felt worse in my body.
And when you give that hug, just go right close to go...
Yep.
And completely mess it up for them.
And you might have to buy your soul back.
And you're gonna drive without your windows rolled down at any point for the rest of the summer. But yeah, no, great movie. I'm glad it lived up to the hype. I know we'll definitely get into spoilers.
Oh yeah,
later on.
Looking forward to it.
Lee, anything else you've been watching in the recent weeks?
Well, you know what? I've been kind of, we had this new Halloween trailer that came out. So
yes, talk about it, man.
My YouTube channel was kind of just engulfed in Halloween news and watching the trailer. I did a trailer reaction for the movie, and I got 20,000 views in a day, which is not normal in Drumdums.
It's cool. Congrats, Steve.
Yeah, I've been kind of consumed with that, and I haven't been able to watch too many movies. I watched some old slashers though, like I watched House on Sorority Row. Because I got this Blu-ray. I can't remember the distribution company, but it's just a beautiful cover, beautiful slipcover and all that. But it was nice to go back and visit one of those old slashers that I haven't seen in like ages. I go through phases when it comes to horror, and slasher genre, that's my favorite genre. And so lately, because of Halloween, I've been really digging into like a lot of those older deep cut type of slashers.
Yeah, that like 80s style kind of slasher.
Yeah, even like 70s, like, you know, like
Yeah.
Black Christmas. Some of the earlier ones that might not get enough recognition, even though Black Christmas does seem like in the past decade it's been getting a lot more recognition. So yeah, that's my palette though.
That's
Awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting the palate cleansed and warmed up for Halloween later this year.
Oh,
I know
yeah,
people
yeah,
are
I'm
really
excited
excited about that trailer.
There are a whole bunch of trailers that dropped.
There was
the
a
last week.
crazy amount.
Yeah, I mean, we were running poll after poll after poll on the Instagram. Sorry, not the Instagram, the Twitter. You know, that Widows trailer is out. The new Lego trailer is out. The new Damien Chazelle First Man trailer is out.
Oh, I need to check that one out. Suspiria remake.
Suspiria's trailer is out too. Yeah.
That was pretty damn. I mean, speaking of unsettling, that last shot in that trailer, pretty damn unsettling. So I wasn't looking forward to a Suspiria remake, but after I saw who was behind it, and then when I finally saw the trailer, I was just like,
It's got a very like
either day one.
It's got a very like old-fashioned quality to it
Well,
too.
it's Luca. Yeah, it's Luca.
Well, I do like that. You know, the original is just a really stylistic film. Like if you hear that word stylistic, and you have to throw out 5 movies, I'd probably say if you've seen Suspiria, you're going to throw it out there. It's just so. I mean, it's Dario Argento. So my big question for the remake was: are they going to make this like? Are they going to copy that?
Just imitate it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't do that at all. They kind of went in the other direction. Whereas this movie looks older than the original.
There's more grain in it and stuff.
Just take all the color out right now.
It's just film burns happening halfway through the movie. No, but yeah, there's a bunch of trailers. I tried to not watch any. I think the only one that I did see was First Man, just because it's like I already know it's a true story. You know what I mean?
Gotta be there for your boy Chazelle.
Yeah, and it looks good. Maybe it's because I saw it on my phone. Maybe it's like an Interstellar type thing. You watch it on your phone, and you're like, eh.
Well, I'm gonna watch that one right after we get done with this podcast because I mean, Whiplash is one of my favorite movies. So I can't believe I didn't even know about this.
Wait, you have a screening for this movie or what?
No.
Watch
A trailer. I want
Bro, I was about to say. I thought you had the early
He's going
hookup.
to the world premiere.
Yeah, I actually have it on my computer right now.
Yeah, Lee is the first man to see First Man. I was like, well then, this man's getting distribution stuff sent to him. Okay then. But no, yeah, it's interesting. A lot of good movies. We're barely halfway through the year, man. It's barely June.
The Nun,
barely
Wednesday.
June.
There's another one that's we're getting a trailer for. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm excited.
Art, anything you've been watching this week you want to talk about?
Besides Hereditary and telling everybody to go see Hereditary, I did catch a couple of other ones in theaters. I want to say Ocean's 8 I caught in theaters, which I thought is good fun.
Yeah.
Nothing special. I am one who like when we had last week's episode about it. I wish that they would give more Bridesmaids, more original properties for women to take and not have to rely on like George Clooney and mentioning him within the movie. But I still thought it was good. I am also of that where I will unbiasedly look at it and be like, it doesn't ruin the originals because why? The originals are still out there. Exactly. Yep. But also it's at the same quality. Can we let's not forget what happened in 12 and how the original Oceans, or not the original Oceans, but the Soderbergh trilogy, they do a lot of dumb stuff.
Yeah,
it's dumb fun.
No, I mean, I would say that only Ocean's 11 is really a classic.
Yeah.
And that Ocean's 12 and 13 just kind of have fun moments with celebrities.
Yeah, they're fun.
That's
dumb
the
moments.
question I was going to ask you guys because I love Ocean's 11, but I didn't really get into 12. I thought they were wasting a little bit of time there. And then the third one, 13, I was just like, okay, what's the point? But I love Ocean's 11.
Yeah. And for me personally, I would put it 11, 13, 8, and then 12.
But where would you rank the breakdancing through the lasers scene?
That's number 1, though. Oh, do you like that scene?
I kind of love that scene.
All right, then you're going to like a scene in Ocean's 8, my friend.
Okay, cool. All right, I've been watching a couple things that popped up on Netflix. I saw the new movie Ibiza with Gillian Jacobs, Phoebe Robinson.
What'd you think?
So, look, I thought this was a little bit interesting in the sense that, you know, they kind of decided to make a movie where nothing goes bad. There is that, like, one kind of conflict that runs throughout the movie, but other than that, this is just like they go on vacation and enjoy their vacation, and you know, there's all these moments where it feels like they're setting up for some like wacky hijinks, and then instead of getting wacky hijinks, we get like a scene in a club where everybody's dancing to EDM, which, like, I don't know. I mean, I gotta admit that I found it to be pleasant. Like, I'm not taking anything away from it.
You like Gillian Jacobs, that's why.
I like
Gillian Jacobs.
that's
I love
yeah.
her too.
But this movie does nothing, dude. Did
It
you not
does
notice
nothing.
that there was so many moments where like you can clearly tell they told them just get to this line right here.
Yeah.
This scene, you just need whatever you talk about. Just make sure that the final line is we're going on a trip, and then it just felt like they were ad-libbing and not good ad-libbing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and look, there's all these other things that it just, in terms of filmmaking, it just kind of felt weird. Like, one of the first things that happens to them once they get to Spain is their friend gets like lobster red in the sun.
Yeah.
That's a classic like vacation comedy trope. That she's gonna, you know, be sunburned. It's gonna hurt whenever anybody touches her.
Yeah.
Never really comes up again.
And she
you
like
know?
find the next scene.
Yeah, she's fine the next scene. And it just, all these things that like didn't end up becoming threads. It was just a bunch of moments. I mean, I don't think this is a movie for everybody, but I do think if you are just looking for like girls trip fun or like people partying and there's a little bit of romance there too, I think you could find worse options out there. I don't think this is a great movie by any means. Don't go out of your way for it. But if any part of the plot or cast appeals to you, I think you'll enjoy it.
Or watch Cheetah Girls 2, where they also go to Spain.
You know, Zach, now that you said that, you kind of reminded me of, like, for Netflix, there's 2 movies on there that recently came out, and the premises are very, very similar, especially, like, the first half of the movie. One of them is Desolation, and the other one is The Ritual, because both of them involve
Ritual, yeah.
a party going to scatter the ashes of a loved
Their
one.
friend, yeah.
And then some, you know, crazy shit starts happening in the woods.
Yeah.
Both those movies have kind of the same premise.
The exact same thing.
Much better, but...
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed The Ritual. I haven't seen Desolation, though.
It's Desolation. One thing I did like, because there's only 3 characters in the whole movie, 3 or 4, and you got this relationship between the mother and the son, and I think that's what kind of made, you know, it saved the movie. Their relationship really saved the movie because the son was trying to get through to the mother that, hey, I'm a man, I can take care of myself. I know our father has gone, but you have to put some trust in me now. And the mother, as a mother would do through the whole movie, she's constantly trying to shelter the son. So that was kind of the nice character moments throughout. But then you got this hiker that's just following them and stalking them throughout the movie, and that's where they kind of lost me because there was nothing interesting about this.
Sounds like Open House.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yuck.
I'll throw out one more quick what I've been watching, another Netflix recommendation. Ali Wong's new comedy special. She kind of burst onto the scene 2 years ago with Baby Cobra. She's the woman who was super pregnant on her cover of her special and was just running around stage with a lot of energy and is really, really funny. She was a writer on Fresh Off the Boat. She's on that show American Housewives now. She's an extremely funny stand-up comedian. I prefer the Baby Cobra special, but this is very much in the same vein. If you liked her comedy in that one, there's more now. Hard Knock Wife, she's already had her first baby, and she's very pregnant again in this one. So it's just funny to hear her perspective and her just being frank and open in a way that I feel is kind of rare to hear women talk about, like sex and stuff that and mothering and that process, just with like a gross frankness that usually is reserved to male comedians. So if you want to learn a little bit about motherhood, as I did, and do it in a funny way, I would check out both of those Ali Wong specials. So let's get into the yay or nays, talking about the latest happenings in the entertainment industry, starting with Quentin Tarantino continues to round out the cast for his upcoming summer of 1969 movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We already had discussed Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, and Margot Robbie in prominent roles, but the cast has expanded considerably, and it now includes Al Pacino, Burt Reynolds, Dakota Fanning, Emile Hirsch, Tarantino regulars Kurt Russell, Tim Roth, and Michael Madsen, as well as James Marsden in what many are suspecting might be the Charles Manson role. Art, let me start with you. Does Once Upon a Time in Hollywood sound like it has potential to be, let's say, top 3 Tarantino?
I want to say yes.
Potential. We're not saying it will be.
I guess the way I'm answering it is from the perspective of it being 2018 and the internet that wasn't around when Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction and all those movies were able to become #1 and cult legends. Do you get what I mean?
Right, right.
So I think that we're at that point that even if it was, too many people are allowed to have opinions that like
There'll
even
be
if
some
it comes
contrarian.
I mean, look, Hereditary. You know, one of the biggest things Ari Aster said was, "I love that I'm getting all this hype, but I just know that that means that the moment the movie comes out, there's going to be even more backlash because it was hyped."
Right.
Personally, I think so. I like it when he's got. Actually, no. Let me take that back. I like it more when he's got a duo. Like my favorite parts of Pulp Fiction is when it's what's in faces.
Jackson and
Travolta.
Travolta.
Django, when it's the two of them, when it's Django and Dentist Man. Those are I like when he's able to do duos. He does a fantastic job with an ensemble, no doubt about that. But for talking for me, maybe not, maybe top half for sure. Yeah. But I like it more when it's more personal. It's got less characters.
I think it's hard to not be excited about this.
Oh yeah, excited 1000%.
Yeah, I can't just give you the question like, does this sound good? But you know, does it sound great? I think is a little bit more interesting. Lee, how do you feel?
Well, a couple things. I think more times than not, when you have like an ensemble cast like that, if you don't have a good director, or you know somebody like Tarantino, then you could be looking at some trouble down the line. But because it's Tarantino and how he knows how to handle actors. And the subject matter. I mean, I've always been fascinated about the Manson case, and it's funny because we're actually going to be talking about old horror versus new horror. And I recently just watched Rosemary's Baby again. Is around kind of the same case because Polanski, you know, in the next year his wife gets murdered. So I've always been super fascinated about that case. So of course I'll be there day one, and the fact that Tarantino is directing it. Icing on the cake. I mean, you're going to have great dialogue, you're going to have great characters, you're going to have great production. So to me, it's a home run, and this potentially could be, for me anyway, like top 3 material.
Awesome.
Wait, did Polanski's wife die in the murders?
Yeah, Sharon Tate was Polanski's wife.
Very next year. There's like a curse.
So she made... Go ahead. No, this man made Rosemary's Baby and then his wife died the next year?
Yeah.
That is correct. Oh, and you won't even go any further. They filmed it in the Dakota, and that is the same exact hotel where John Lennon, who wrote Helter Skelter, was killed.
Helter Skelter being the song that inspired Manson to commit the murders.
So there's like a Curse of Rosemary's Baby type deal, kind of like Curse of Poltergeist, but yeah, it's really interesting.
If you want to know more about that, let me just break in to tell you, check out Karina Longworth's podcast, You Must Remember This. She did like a 10-episode arc called Charles Manson's Hollywood, just talking about the ways that Charles Manson's life and sort of intertwined with dreams of Hollywood and different people in Hollywood, and it's really, really just mind-blowing. It's a really fascinating listen.
Oh, yeah, I will definitely check that out. I love that type of stuff. I love anything that's like conspiracy related. I don't know.
Yeah, that's 1000%. There's a little bit of a connection there, yeah, I gotta say. That's wild. That's crazy.
In a new interview, director Matthew Vaughn expressed his interest in returning not only to more Kingsman movies, but more kick-ass films as well. He told Entertainment Weekly, quote, "I want to shake things up a little bit, the setting, and shifted. I wanted to shake up the setting a little bit, and shifted the whole thing to New Mexico. The lead is a woman this time, a mother in her early 30s with 2 young kids. She's also a military vet. And he's expressed in doing a Hit Girl spin-off with Chloe Grace Moretz, a follow-up to last year's Kingsman sequel, and a spin-off about the Statesman from last year's Kingsman sequel. Lee, yay or nay, Matthew Vaughn needs to take these things one movie at a time.
Yeah. Well, there's where my nay lies. When you have that many properties all at once, it can be a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
A couple of those things I am excited about, like maybe pursuing, you know, a spin-off of the Kingsmen. That could work. As far as Kick-Ass, I love the first Kick-Ass. The second one had some problems. I liked Jim Carrey in that movie, actually. But a spin-off with Hit Girl, I like the idea. If you have Nick Cage in there, then I'm for that, because maybe show a little bit of her backstory with Nick Cage, because he was irresistible in the first Kingsman. I mean, that character, I mean, he pretty much was mimicking Adam West, but
Yeah.
Still, I loved him in the first Kick-Ass, and maybe that's part of the problem that was missing from the second one.
The second one, his spirit was
I'm
gone.
kind of on the fence. I'm in the middle.
I think that in the first one, the novelty of Hit Girl was that she was so young.
Right.
That was also what was gone in the second one, but that's okay because they exchanged it for her being like, oh, look at how awkward it is. She's not a girl anymore. She's a teen, but she doesn't fit in. I don't know what the next one can be because we already got her in the Second Neighbors movie where she was already in college. So I feel like, if anything, the Hit Girl thing should be when she's a little bit older. Maybe as a mom. Like, I don't know what the next step would be. If we've already done her as a kid, we've already done her, like, in high school. I feel like the next thing to cover about her would be when she's a little bit older. In terms of the Statesman, they made what was it, Scotch? Or bourbon? Whatever it was. They made it seem really good. And I know that they actually partnered, just like the original Kingsman partnered with, like, some tailors. They actually partnered, I think it was with Forrester Bourbon or something like that. Sure. I guess.
Before Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical sensation Hamilton won 11 Tonys, the actor, rapper, songwriter was on Broadway with a musical he wrote called In the Heights, about the lives of characters living in Washington Heights, Manhattan. The musical was most recently supposed to be released by the Weinstein Company, but in wake of the Harvey Weinstein scandal, Miranda regained the rights to the film now is set to team up with Warner Brothers as well as Crazy Rich Asians director John Chu to release In the Heights in the summer of 2020. Art, yay or nay, Lin-Manuel's other Broadway show will be a hit with mainstream audiences?
Yes.
Have you listened to In the Heights at all?
Yes.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I haven't
seen the whole thing. Yeah, I haven't seen the whole thing.
I haven't seen Hamilton. I have seen In the Heights.
Wait, you saw In the Heights?
Yeah, man.
No, like actually saw In the Heights.
I saw Lin-Manuel in the Heights. I don't think Art's ever been more jealous of me.
So Lee, I know you celebrated your anniversary with your beautiful wife just recently, and I'm sure that as a relationship grows, you find out things about each other that you didn't know.
After 25 years?
What? I know you saw him. Why didn't you tell me this when I saw Hamilton in Chicago? No, yeah, I think it'll be great, especially by 2020. Specifically, what that story's about. You're just going to make bodegas even more popular over there.
I didn't even consider that it's going to be an election year. That might be
really, and what's all that story about? Exactly. No, I'm excited. That's cool. I've been waiting for him to take more adaptations to the big screen.
The story is really great. It's a lot of fun. The thing about it versus Hamilton, whereas Hamilton has that sort of like, you know, weird like, it's an old story but feels very modern, which I don't know how that will adapt to film. Like, I'm excited to see a Hamilton on film, don't get me wrong. In the Heights is going to work easily on film. It's a modern-day musical set in Washington Heights with an eclectic cast of characters. I think at one point J-Lo was interested in being involved with this. So I think it's a really good move. I'm excited to see it. I think it'd be cool if they got Lin-Manuel in it. I feel like he can still fit into that role of Usnavi.
Easily.
So. We'll see. HBO has officially ordered a Game of Thrones preview series co-created by Thrones creator George R.R. Martin and Kingsman screenwriter Jane Goldman. The show is set thousands of years before the events depicted in the Game of Thrones series. So don't get excited about a Ned Stark cameo happening anytime soon. This is one of several Game of Thrones spin-offs that HBO had commissioned scripts for, which would lead you to believe that it's the version they had the most faith in. However, Lee, yay or nay, you're interested in a series that takes place thousands of years before what we know of as Game of Thrones.
I'm going to say yay with caution, because I'm just curious, like, why would they use this as the first property? Why not, you know, take advantage of maybe telling a little bit more of the story of Ned Stark while you have Sean Bean still at a relatively, you know, young age? I think, to me, that's a no-brainer. So I'd still watch it, though, because I'm such an avid Game of Thrones fan. I think there's a lot more stories to tell there, but just my big caution is, why go 1,000 years before? I mean, you have a lot of time to play with there, so why not play it safe and, you know, maybe tell the story of, like, Drogo, or tell the story of Ned Stark. I mean, Ned Stark's one of my favorite characters.
He's dope.
So to me, Ned Stark would be amazing.
Art?
Well, I think that they're saving Aldrin Heinrich to do the Ned Stark solo film that they're going to be doing.
Oh,
with
makes
him.
sense now.
Yeah, what I heard the pitch was that the reason they're going 1,000 years, the way that the pitch says it, is because it's a story you haven't heard. The way that you thought it was, it's actually not how it is. Whether that's a lie, you know, oh, it's the untold story of Spider-Man. Get the heck out of here. It's the same story. I don't know if they're actually going to do something new, and that would be really cool. It's sort of like, whoa, it changes up Game of Thrones for you. You know what I mean? That would be crazy. I don't know if that's the case. The only reason I'm okay with it being 1,000 years is while I would love the fact that they actually have the actors in their prime right now still. You kind of, since all of that is recent, you can't play as much with it. You know what I mean? Because Ned Stark already has a backstory that's been established, so you can't do anything too crazy that makes you go, wait a minute, that wouldn't even make sense in the... But HBO's got the money. I don't... I just hope that it's good. More Game of Thrones
Well,
stuff.
this too, like, if you can... And I know it's 1,000 years, but if you can somehow link that to what's been going on, and then maybe even change things up, like, oh, that's a revelation right there that kind of changes everything that we know.
Right? That would be cool.
This is getting a little bit into the, like, nitty-gritty of the series, so if you don't watch it, you might not know what we're talking about, but, like, maybe this is, like, about the creation of the Ice King or something like that, or what was it, the Earth People, or
and now they like create the White Walkers and stuff like that. Which is why I feel like we already got a little bit of that. So I'm curious how they're going to expand on that or contradict what they've already kind of showed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if they commissioned several scripts and this is the one they chose, I have some faith that there's going to be more. You know, there's a story there. They're keeping it very tightly under wraps as they do all Game of Thrones stuff.
Yeah.
But I enjoy spending time in that world. So hopefully they can make something that's somewhat as expansive and exciting as the current Game of Thrones series.
Play the Telltale game, guys. If you guys haven't played the Telltale games, definitely check it out. You play it on your iPad. It is very good.
Yes.
Very good.
And very much in the spirit of Game of Thrones. All right.
Concerning the White Walkers, though, I'm totally down for it because I think they did it perfectly throughout the series where you would only see just a little bit. Some seasons you'd see like maybe one scene with the White Walkers.
Yeah.
You'd be like,
that
oh,
mystery.
Please give me some more. And then you'd have to wait a whole year for the next season. So yeah, I mean anything with the White Walkers, I want to dive into that world.
Do you think that'll ruin it for you though? Because it sounds like you're liking the mystery. You know what I mean? It's like you're liking the mystery. Give me some more, and then you kind of get too much, and then you go, oh.
Yeah. Well, give me more. But give me something that I never dared even expect. You know, don't give me something that I'm like, yeah, I knew they were going to do that.
They gotta switch it up somehow.
Switch it up, yeah.
All right, so we're going to wrap up Yay or Nay with a few rough cut stories and quickly hit a few topics, starting with Mr. Robot creator Sam Esmail putting together a film adaptation of American Radical, the book that told the true story of an undercover American Muslim police officer who joined a counterterrorism unit after 9/11. And he's looking to enlist his Mr. Robot star Rami Malek in the lead role. Art, yay or nay?
1,000.
Intrigued by the pairing?
Yes, 1,000%. My watch Mr. Robot, yeah.
Yeah, Malek is one of the most interesting actors I've seen work.
Yes, sir.
I loved Mr. Robot, both seasons. Have they even finished season 3 yet?
Yeah, they finished it somewhat
recently.
That's what I thought. Okay, I've been meaning to jump on it, and he's going to be, Freddie Mercury. So, but he's just one of those actors that like if you watch Mr. Robot, he doesn't really he does a lot with the silence. You know what I mean?
And his eyes.
He's a very,
very watchable actor.
100%.
Yeah, he's a very watchable actor. He knows Sam Esmail well. They seem to have a great working partnership. Both of them are American Muslims, which adds to this story that they're coming at it with some experience. And I think a lot of people have talked about the portrayal of Muslims in stories about terrorism. So I think it'll be interesting to get one where we have like Muslims on both sides and it's from a perspective that's treating it hopefully with empathy. I'm really excited to listen to this story.
I was going to say it brings up a good point. That's a risky tale to tell on screen, especially in America.
Yeah.
Because of terrorism and how touchy it is in America. And you're going to have people that are on, both sides of the argument. So
yeah, undoubtedly they will get somebody upset.
So I know we always do this with the rough cuts. They're supposed to be quick, but let me add another point to this.
Please.
Have you guys heard about Quantico? The issue with Quantico was trending not too long ago.
Yeah, throw that in.
So the thing with Quantico was that, as you know, I always forget her name. She's a beautiful actress, and she's an Indian actress who came over here. From what I know,
Chopra.
Yes, and she's over here, and like her big breakout was Quantico, and like she supposedly owns it. One of the most recent episodes was that they had an Indian extremist who was a terrorist, and the Indian viewers went crazy. And they're like, this is a shame. Like, they practically said, Chopra, we brought you up. We're the reason you're famous. We supported you before you even broke over here into the mainstream. How dare you represent us in that light? Mm-hmm. Y'all watching Sicario this summer, right? That don't represent all Mexicans. But they do exist. I thought it was kind of hypocritical that Quantico has had like 2-3 seasons, and they've been okay with every other people being extremists except when it came to their own. I get that. And Lee brought up a great point. Things get really iffy because you never know. Some people actually watch it. And I brought up my Sicario story where my buddy literally thinks all Mexicans are suspicious. Can't say buddy. I know a dude who thinks all Mexicans are suspicious because man's watched Traffic and Sicario. Yeah. But at the same time, you know what I mean? It's like they don't represent everyone. And to be okay with some extremes being covered, but not when it comes close to your own, I don't know about that, because y'all watching Sicario this summer for a fact, and you should, because it's a really good movie. I did catch Sicario too. So,
well, in our current climate, how words can be, everything's really touchy these days in America. Now, imagine like in a third world country, it's still 10 times more dangerous.
1,000%
over there. Yeah, 1,000%. Like if you say, "How is your family?" That's fine. But if you say, "How is your wife?"
Why do you want to know about that?
So
yeah, there was a great quote. I think I had retweeted it. It was about some people don't hear what you say, they feel or something. They're not hearing the words you're saying. They're feeling what they perceive your words to be.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's always sensitive issues, subjects around depiction of different races or religions and stuff like that. And, ultimately I feel like a lot of it comes down to the fact that television and movies in general are not representative of humanity, let alone any specific race or person. There's far too few shows about depressed people sitting in their underwear watching Netflix for it to be an accurate depiction of reality.
BoJack!
Yeah, BoJack is the one. And, like, I don't say that to discount the people who have legitimate arguments to make about the way that there are sometimes harmful representations.
Propaganda.
But yeah, like expecting TV and movies to be a perfect reflection of real life is just never gonna work.
Movies are entertainment. A-level content. 3 words. Is it marketable? That's much it. And how attractive is my my lead? Everything's got to grab a buck somehow.
All right, we're going to move on from our rough cut story to another rough cut. We've previously covered Jessica Chastain, James McAvoy, and Bill Hader all joining the cast of It Chapter 2, the sequel to last year's horror smash hit.
Yes.
The rest of the Losers Club has now been assembled, and that includes Tangerine actor James Ransone as Eddie, as well as Old Spice spokesperson Isaiah Mustafa playing the older Mike Hanlon. Lee, yay or nay, you're excited to see these actors joining the It franchise.
Oh, absolutely. I just recently watched the original for the first time, and the adult section of the movie is the most cringeworthy. I'm liking the list of actors that I'm hearing for this new one. And plus, I think sometimes you need more of a modern version of a film because of how dated things can be. And I think the original It is a perfect representation of that. I think this new one has the potential to be great. Hopefully, if they put a spider at the end of the movie, it's not as cheesy or
as the old one.
The original.
Yeah. Hopefully, it's a little more enemy spider.
Yeah.
So I'm on board 100%.
Yeah. Great glow up for the boy too. To become the Old Spice man, great glow up for him. I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of really charismatic people, so I think they're in good shape for this upcoming sequel. Eddie Murphy has only made 2 films since 2012, but he's attached to a new Netflix biopic called Dolomite Is My Name, in which he'll play famous blaxploitation star Rudy Ray Moore, with Hustle and Flow's Craig Brewer directing and the writing team behind Ed Wood, Big Eyes, and more penning the script. Art, yay or nay, you're ready for the return of Eddie Murphy?
Yes, I hope that they play Eddie Murphy not like Adam Sandler, but they play Eddie Murphy like Adam Sandler Meyerowitz stories.
The dramatic
Yes.
Sandler.
That's it. That's all I asked for.
That's kind of been Eddie Murphy's bag a little more recently. The most recent film that he did was, I believe, called Mr. Church or something like that. And
Oh yeah,
I'm not saying it's good, but it's again, he's like seeming to be a little more interested in getting some of that serious stuff out. You know, he got that Oscar nomination for Dreamgirls a few years ago, and it seems like he really wanted to win. Lee, any thoughts?
Well, Eddie, I mean, I grew up, you know, a big Eddie Murphy fan. Delirious, I could
Delirious.
the album verbatim. I've listened to it so many times. But Eddie Murphy's one of those actors to me that I'm always interested in. Like, even when he's like out of the spotlight for 5, 6 years, you're like, what is Eddie Murphy doing right now? For some reason,
Yeah.
why am I not here? And also, he doesn't do comedy anymore. And he was at one time one of the greatest stand-up comedians ever.
Raw, dude. Yeah, that man.
I find that interesting. I find that interesting.
Yeah, he's definitely going through a very interesting phase where, like, he showed up at the SNL 40th reunion and didn't crack one joke. Like, it's weird seeing one of the funniest stars of history or whatever, you know, at least maybe the funniest star of the 80s. I feel like you could say that almost definitively.
For sure.
Just not be funny anymore. And he's going to be funny in this, I'm assuming. Blaxploitation film is probably going to, or a Blaxploitation biopic is probably going to call for it. But, you know, he's too immense of a talent to just kind of forget about. It's been weird not having him. I'd like to see him do really well in a role like this.
Yep.
Paddington director Paul King has been hired to direct a new young Willy Wonka movie for Warner Brothers. Over the weekend, Collider revealed a short list of actors being considered for the role, including Donald Glover, Ryan Gosling, and Ezra Miller. Lee, yay or nay, you would want to see a Wonka Origins film with one of these 3 actors?
I'm going an emphatic nay. I just, you know,
Same.
we already have the original. We already have a remake that I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't, you know, the biggest thing is I don't care. I don't want to know any more about Willy Wonka. I love the original. Gene Wilder was phenomenal in that role, and I just don't want to go back to that world. If I ever want to go back to that world, I'll throw in the original. It's just one of those cases where I didn't really need the remake. I don't need a prequel.
I want a Hershey's story. I don't care about anything else.
Can I throw in a hypothetical? If we
it.
never got that Tim Burton remake, who would be the best one of those 3 guys, you think?
Ezra Miller.
You think?
Yeah. I agree. Ezra Miller, for sure. I want a Veruca Salt spinoff movie, actually.
I think the thing that I want to see most is the, like, Donald Glover Funny or Die version of this.
Yeah.
But not a real version.
That's a great yeah, a YouTube video of this is fantastic. A movie? A feature film? No.
Yeah. All right, so that does it for yay or nay. Let us know what you thought of all of those topics down in the comments below, and we'll make sure to read them, maybe to feature a couple on next week's show. But we move on to our topic of the week, and this week we got to get into the movie that has everybody shaking and crying. And not feeling so good about themselves. It's Hereditary. Now, Hereditary is a hard movie not to spoil. There's a lot of really horrifying things that happen pretty much from the start of this movie. So we want to be able to discuss this in full detail. We mentioned that we liked it earlier in the show. If you haven't seen it yet and you don't want it spoiled, we got the episode description down in the description below, and you can jump forward to a time code that will clear you of all spoilers. Keep listening to us, get our picks for the week, our new to see recommendations, and don't get Hereditary spoiled for you. Watch the movie, come back and watch with us. But we're starting with the spoilers, so stick with us and hear our thoughts in just a second. Art, you saw this movie way back at Sundance and called it one of the most horrifying things you've ever seen. You've talked about how you encourage people to get a baptism before
and after.
Having seen it again now, what struck you through getting to see Hereditary again?
The artistry. First time I saw it in like this rinky-dink, I don't know what it would the equivalent be for you guys. In Chicago, it's the Music Box, that old theater that feels like it has demons and ghouls in it. Well, at Sundance, there's one. It's called the Tower Theater. That feels like there's dead people in there. So I watched the movie. It was the second movie that I saw for this past year. The second of the list. Loved it. Scared me. People were crying, people were praying, and then outside they were having interviews with one of the scariest cast members of the movie, which was Millie Shapiro. So I come out and I see her after not wanting to see her ever again, and yeah, it just freaked me out. But I loved it. I kept talking about it, that and Searching. Right now I am putting Searching as number 1. I've officially seen both of them. I personally more I guess attracted. I like Searching more, and that'll be another discussion in August. But seeing this one again, not as scary per se, but the beauty of the artistry in it. I think the first time that you see it, all the scares will be there, but once you know the scares, you're just waiting and you're like, okay, now I get why it's taking so long to get to this point. They ain't wasting time. They're building characters. This is a family drama. You start noting the birds that mean a lot more than you think, the beheadings that mean a lot more than you think, the symbols that some characters are wearing that if you were paying attention you would have realized, oh, she's been manipulating this the whole time. Some really crazy stuff. Really good stuff.
Yeah, Lee, any thoughts?
Oh yeah, a lot of thoughts. First off, I've always been interested in these movies that cause physical reactions to people, like The Exorcist. You hear those stories about people vomiting and running out of the theater. And it's funny you mentioned that, because just today I heard a story in a forum where they were stating that somebody for some reason brought a 12-year-old girl to see this movie, and in the middle of the movie she started crying.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Like, I need to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, no duh.
Yeah, but I've always been interested in horror movies that involve families.
Yes.
When there's like this strife, because I think every family has cracks. You know what I mean?
Right.
And a lot of times we don't see that at face value, but when you move the camera inside their house and, the outside people don't see what's going on, he's got those cracks. And this movie, more than any other, not alone horror movie, but just movie in general, really just dives. I mean, the camera dives deep into those cracks. That's what I love about it. And there are so many scenes in this movie with Toni Collette and Alex Wolff.
Yeah,
that are just like, I was just floored by how the acting. When Toni Collette is mourning for her daughter, that was one of the realest scenes I've ever seen of somebody like lamenting a loved one. And and I was just this movie requires a second viewing, I think, because you're so caught up in the emotions of it throughout. And then by the time you get to that third act, you're just like, oh wait, there's this massive twist, and I didn't even need this because I'm still processing.
Right.
So it's one of those movies. I'm with you, Art. It requires a second viewing. I think it's amazing though. Like I mean, it's an A24 production. Everything about it, I think, is just wonderful. It's what you don't get in horror movies that often.
Yeah.
I think I want to go back to that mentioning the mourning of the daughter, because that is the thing that I think really does kind of elevate this film above most horror films. In that
feels like a real death.
And can we give Toni Collette an Oscar right now, please?
I said that back in yes, it's over. The race ended.
I think for me, the scariest thing that happens in this movie is the one thing that seems like it really could happen, and it's that moment in the car. It's not. There's nothing supernatural about it. It's a careless mistake. And you mentioned Toni Collette, but Alex Wolff, that reaction when he's sitting there in the, I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was amazing. There's that whole somebody in the theater next to me was like impatient trying to find out what exactly happened. But to me, it was a beautiful depiction of it's hard to face that reality. It's denial. He can't even get himself to say the words to his parents to tell them what happened.
Bro, that's great.
That is one scene. Before I even did this, I was like, if there's any scene from this movie that I want to talk about,
it's that
scene, because his sister is killed, and then it's like the camera just sits there right in front of him for what seems like forever.
He refuses to believe
go and show the body or show something gruesome,
and they do a bit.
Pretty much it said everything.
Yes, and then he just goes home, and like Zach was saying, it's one of those things, and what makes it still scary is because you think of yourself being in that scenario, like someone calls you and tells you some really bad news, but you won't process it, so you just continue cooking, you just continue cleaning, and that's kind of scary when you see that in the movie, because usually it's a horror film, it's like, Scream Queen, next scene, but here it's like, we're just going to stare at this guy's face as he literally believes but refuses to admit that his sister just died. Goes home, goes to bed, goes to bed, and then we have to hear the groans of the mother smelling and finding out what actually happened.
Yeah, and to me, that's just infinitely more scary than all the supernatural stuff that
terrifying.
happens. Not to say the supernatural stuff isn't scary too.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, as far as filmmaking goes, I think this is a movie that needs to be studied because
Yes.
you could,
Yes,
there's
it does.
there's 10, 15, 20 different ways you can film a scene, how a situation plays out. And that particular scene, they could have filmed it the traditional way, but they chose to do something that most directors wouldn't do. They chose to just focus in on one person, just show just a quick glimpse of what happened to the head, but
Yeah.
just let the camera just sit there and let his face pretty much tell the whole story for like the next couple minutes. And I think that was the best way to film the scene.
We don't talk about trailers too much, and I don't really want to talk about trailers too much. But we're in the age where trailers really matter, and I think that the trailer so prominently featured Charlie.
Yes,
and that
I
she
loved
gets
it.
ripped out of the films pretty quickly.
I loved it.
Was a very unexpected thing. So that worked really well for me. And then it starts to get into some of the more supernatural stuff, which I think it's really cleverly done in a way that it builds, and you see those reflections, those weird spectral things that to me were really effective in that. I think a lot of people, when they talk about seeing ghosts and stuff, they don't talk about seeing figures as much as they see weird lights and light patterns. And so it was cool to see a different looking idea of the afterlife or the supernatural. But those scenes with the talking to the dead, did you find them as tense and just frightening as I did? How did they work for you?
I've heard a couple of people say that they weren't scared at the movie; they were laughing at the movie.
Yeah, I've heard some people reacting.
Yeah, and I just go, yeah, that's called your behavioral. What is the thing called? That's what you do when you're actually scared. In my screening, the first time that I saw it, that was a majority of what it was. Just that's what it was, and that's what the characters do, where they're scared, but at the same time they can't. That was what I loved about the movie the first time that I saw it. They refuse to believe what they're actually experiencing, be it in a super dramatic way with Alex Wolff, or be it when the first seance happens or the second seance happens, where the dad, they both do the same thing. They look. First thing they do is look under the table.
I love that note that they both look under the table.
So that adds an element to it that before it goes off the rails, it's so grounded in realism. Before it goes off the rails, that it just, things like that make you go, we always talk about Geico commercials, even make fun of it. Where should we hide?
Right.
Why not next to the chainsaws? Why would you put yourself there? And that this movie goes, no, none of us refuse to believe anything that's happening. But the movie sets it up right from the beginning. When you rewatch it again, like I said, you see that Joanne is there from the first therapy session, wearing that symbol on her ring. You noticed when not only the father gets the call, but he starts talking about that smell in the house, which you realize in the third act what it is. It's wild. I'm curious to know, Lee.
I was really interested in Gabriel Byrne's character too, because he's kind of this
poor guy.
Father, this guy that's just picking up the pieces of all these things that just keep dropping on the floor. It's like he's not wanting to process what's going on as much.
Yeah,
it had something to do with his demise in the end.
I feel like there's a worse version of the movie that centers on
just his
character.
perspective.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Freeze frame him when he's burning up. You're probably wondering how I got myself here. Yeah, it sucked for him the most. I felt the worst for him. I mean, Alex and then him. Alex and then him.
Alex is the one who's actively tortured throughout.
Yeah,
the film.
and the worst part about it is there's an interview with Ari Aster where he says he actually gave himself PTSD while filming.
I believe it.
And I'm like, wow, okay.
Because a lot of the times he had to pretty much let himself go emotionally.
Yes.
And that's not an easy thing to do for an actor, especially when you got to do it over and over and over. Because, I mean, there's quite a few scenes where he just breaks down. Not just once, but just constantly.
And literally, yeah.
I can't imagine what he had to go through by the end of it.
Yeah. But an interesting thing to tie it back to the topic about old horror is I know that Ari Aster, especially in some of the interviews that he had at Sundance, was talking about that some of his biggest influences were Rosemary's Baby. And he had mentioned a couple of other ones that he grew up. One is The Cook, the Thief.
The lover and his wife.
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
I've yet to see it, but that I saw the trailer. I was like, Oh, this got that weird the children of the whatever, I don't know if you know, delicatessen, those type of like, it's just nothing weird is really happening. It's just the environment of it.
It's unsettling.
This movie gets that. And I think it goes with a bunch of other movies. I'm putting The Witch in there. I'm not one to say this one stands the crop for me, without a doubt. But I'm not that person who just, gotta get the clicks, so this is the next big one. And then something's gonna come out in a month. No. I still pay respects to The Witch, the movie. The Babadook for what it does. It Comes at Night. This one is just the cream of the crop for me. But all of these movies have been moving towards that. All A24 movies, really. Yeah. Well,
Lee, let me ask you this. There's been a discussion going on in some horror communities about the idea of elevated horror, how these A24 releases are kind of prestige releases that are shot really immaculately, are given this tag of being like more than a horror film or not just a horror film. Do you think that is disrespectful to horror as a genre, or do you think that's necessary to say what this is in comparison to other horror films?
Good question.
I don't think it's disrespectful at all. I think you have different levels of horror. I think sometimes you want just that hack and slash movie, it's like a cheeseburger. And then sometimes you want a highbrow horror film like Darling or something like that. I am that guy that loves all types of horror. If it causes me to have some kind of emotion, then I love it. And I do crave like really well produced, really well directed horror films. I mean, the original Halloween is a very well directed film. It just happens to be a slasher film. And unfortunately, there were 1,000 other slasher films that came after it that are crap, for lack of a better term. When you have movies like The Witch, which is one of my favorite movies of the last decade, and it is polarizing, you are going to have an audience that does not like this movie, that hates this movie. I love that aspect. I don't want a movie that everybody loves.
Yes!
It Follows is a perfect example. I constantly see splits right down the middle for It Follows. I love it. You hate it.
Yeah, I don't like it, but exactly.
I love it.
That's what a good. Well, both of you are wrong, and that's okay because even Peter walked with Jesus, and he made mistakes. But the problem with it, and I agree with you, is that some of the best parts of movies is when they're split. It's okay for everyone not to love a movie. What they don't like about it is what you end up loving about it.
I kind of lean towards polarizing films too, though, and I hate to bring this up, but Batman v Superman is a perfect example because
it is.
I'm one of those guys that I love that movie. And I get the problems that other people have with it, but I think when I saw that movie was like 27%,
absolutely,
and it's such a big property, I was just like,
it's an homage.
More curious.
It's an homage to Detective Comics 27, if you will.
But I think I agree there's a lot in that movie. You grab what you want out of it.
Yeah, I like what you said about the cheeseburger aspect, because I've always said that too. Sometimes you want a good Wolfgang Pang burger, and then sometimes you just want a McDouble. And I like how
that's a great example of a good cheeseburger. It's just a fun horror comedy.
I like how you said that horror movies within and of itself, some people just think that's a genre, but not realizing that it's still split within its own stuff in it as well. Every movie has. It's like when people slum up animation.
Yep.
Right? Or, faith-based films. No, there's still different things within it.
BoJack Horseman has anything to do with Dora the Explorer.
Or Spirit. Yeah, no. And I love how you said about horror movies. You've been one to define that a lot recently. I would say that the biggest thing I can find myself is with the rap genre. I'm infatuated. I love rap. Grew up with it. And knowing that there's a difference between lyrical rap and what's now known as mumble rap, or, like different things like that. For you, as I've watched your videos, is that you, have come up with those defining terms of slashers. And then, I don't know what term you would give the A24 movies, but knowing that there's different...
Yeah, it's also like art house horror, slashers, evil possession movies. If you break it all down into different, subsets, subgenres, then I think you can accept it a little bit more. And to go even further with that, I think there's a misconception, too, that horror fans only like horror movies, when, in fact, horror fans love all types of movies, they just like horror more. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Yeah. I love a good film, and it doesn't have to be horror at all. Nightcrawler is one of my favorite films.
No, that's a horror film, bro. That's a horror film.
It does have some strong horror element. You could take that character in Nightcrawler and put him in a horror movie, and he'd fit right.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And those movies are the most interesting to me, actually. When you take a genre that's not necessarily horror, but throw some aspect of another genre in that movie and play around with that, I love that.
I'm gonna throw out the idea of atmospheric horror as a tag for these A24 movies, because they so much rely on just like the air being tense and the slow camera movements and just everything feeling like you have to pay attention to each little bit of the frame, because there might be something moving in the corner, or there might be Toni Collette up in the ceiling.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys
Banging
noticed
her
this,
head
but when Alex Wolff is smoking his bong out of the window, was there smoke coming from the other side of the screen too?
Oh, I noticed that. I noticed that. I was too busy when he was doing the what you can see as pretend or whatever, the fake choking.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think the A24 movies do a really great job of just capturing like an atmosphere and giving you this creepiness through the direction, through the art house style. I love the shot that this film starts on. That starts with framing the treehouse and
Yeah, boy.
slowly moving over and moving into the miniatures, and then the miniature turns into the real room.
The movies in the miniatures?
So creepy.
Yep.
It is so creepy. And there's a lot of creative choices like that. There's like the kind of Casey Neistat-ish hard cut from day to night thing going on,
Yeah,
which
they do it
is
with the
creepy
trees,
and
yeah.
unsettling. So I just thought it was a very technically beautiful and well done horror film. So that for me, it's clearly a step above just a run-of-the-mill movie. Whether you want to use the term elevated to describe this as a horror movie, I don't know, but it is of the best in the genre.
Mm-hmm.
And it's polarizing, because I've seen a lot of people say, I don't
Yeah.
like Hereditary. I don't get it.
D on Cinema Score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But, I think A24 has something to do with that, too, because they're one of those few studios
They rate it.
because one thing that people love about horror movies is they are about the unexpected.
Yeah.
There's always that shock and that scare. Not necessarily scary even sometimes, just something unexpected. A24 takes movies that aren't horror movies and gives you unexpected, like The Lobster.
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen from one scene to the next in The Lobster.
True. Swiss Army Man.
It's just very interesting, and I think that's the niche that A24 has for their studio. You're always going to get, like Swiss Army Man, you're always going to get something that is just really, really out there, out of left field, just really interesting.
Lee, let me throw another question at you. Considering we've got this slate of A24 horror movies, a lot of them are very polarizing, but you're a person who's very familiar with the history of the horror genre, from the slashers of the 80s to some of the more gore flicks of the late 90s, early 2000s. I want to ask you, has what we're scared of in movies changed? Have you noticed a shift in the types of things that we're getting from our horror filmmakers to elicit these reactions?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the short answer is yes, because audiences are really desensitized to things now. Technology.
Right.
Just films are made differently now. I mean, we have digital filmmaking now, so
Yeah.
I recently have dived into like giallo films. I like discovering new things, even if it's not of this day and age.
Right.
And I fell in love with a lot of these films in the giallo genre. Like,
What is that?
Bay of Blood. Giallo is it's Italian films. Most of them are like Dario Argento, but they're just very stylistic in nature. They're more expressionistic than like just straight up in your face horror movies. They're more surprising.
They create a mood.
I always tell horror movies that are like true horror fans that want to delve into other subgenres. I always say try out giallo films, because there's a lot of stuff out there that
It's the craft beer of the genre. It's the IPA of the genre.
Right.
That's interesting.
Have
Okay.
really long titles too, like the Bird in the Crystal Plumage.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, man, I'm telling you, there's a lot of very well-made films, especially if you're dealing with Mario Bava, Dario Argento. Those two directors right there are a great place to start. But yeah, back to Zach's question, yeah, I think if you watch these movies now, they're not gonna scare you, but I don't know. I guess it depends on the person, because I find them more satisfying. I don't really get scared by movies anymore. I'm always just looking for a good story. I'm looking for something that's different. And I'm looking for maybe a little bit of a creep factor there. But it all comes down to the story. Horror, whatever genre you're talking about, it always comes down to the story. So,
Yeah, and that's something that we've been talking about. You know, you said that Hereditary has stuck with you, and I think that's one of the reasons that we're expecting this to remain in the horror conversation for years to come, is it really does have a lasting effect. The way that I think great horror movies really do get under your skin. But to answer my own question a little bit, I think you touched on it a bit with the advancement in filmmaking we've seen. You mentioned earlier in the show the earlier version of It, which is a lot cringier, a lot more silly to watch, and it's not effectively scary. And a lot of that is that we have these new technologies available to us, that CGI has gotten to a point where it can be somewhat believable, that our filmmaking has evolved in a way where I think jump scares are increasingly getting weeded out of these horror movies. And that's like among the cheapest of the scares that I think, you know, has turned a lot of people off from the horror genre. So I'm really excited by a lot of these A24 movies that take things a little more slowly and just get, like you said, give you that creepy vibe and just unsettle you.
Yeah, I think A24 is a big reason why the horror genre is making a comeback, because we went through quite a few years there where we were just getting these run-of-the-mill movies that
forgettable stuff,
jump scares. And now, you know, with movies like The Witch, A24's put out so many, like Green Room. That's another great.
Ooh,
well, should we talk about Blumhouse? Because Blumhouse is, if anything, the like counter to the A24 argument, that they're putting out all these more cheaply made horror movies that are a little bit more splashy and gory and have a hook to them. But they're effective too, and I think they're a lot better than similar films that we've seen in previous years.
And sometimes you got to get out.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's a hodgepodge. You're going to get out, and then you're going to get Truth or Dare, which is absolutely
love them at their worst. If you don't love them at their worst,
they pump out a lot of content too. So, you know, eventually you're going to get something that's good.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the things that have been interesting to note in the horror genre as technology has evolved, the way that we're trying to use it in our horror movies. I think Unfriended does a really interesting job of trying to get at the perils of online media or being online and social media, but through the horror genre. That being said, you know, we're still seeing a lot of horror movies that kind of are old-fashioned or look back or are literally period pieces, just because, you know, things like cell phones and stuff can take the take the air out of a lot of these movies. I do wonder. I'm actually gonna. I want to ask you another question, just based on your experience,
Sure.
Lee. Are there good military set horror films? Because that's something, considering how many people in the past couple of generations have, you know, been part of the military and had that type of experience. I'm a little more surprised there isn't somebody trying to adapt that kind of story into horror.
Well, I mean, I first off, just putting horror aside, you know, I was in the military for 24 years, and the first thing that people think is that I love all military movies. And they couldn't be further from the truth, because a lot of them are just really cliche.
Yes.
They try to, it's a template, really. You know, they put we're gung-ho, we're going to fight for America. And I think they don't dig deep. Like Hurt Locker, there's few ones that I love. Hurt Locker's a good one. Saving Private Ryan. But for the most part, I don't really, you know, gravitate towards military movies, because I don't know, they just don't jump out at me. And maybe because I was in the military for 24 years, and the last thing I want to see. Yeah,
you're already familiar with the stories?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the stories. But to answer your question, as far as like military and horror movies, the two that come to mind are like Aliens and Dog Soldier. Yeah, those two do have like a military aspect to them. They don't depend on the military. The story around the military is what makes it. And those two are great examples.
But those are ones that are not as recent releases. I'm a little surprised. It'd be interesting to see something a little more recent kind of take that angle, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure I'm probably missing one or two in there, but
yeah,
those are the two that just jump out at me.
Do you think, is Jacob's Ladder military?
You know, I have never seen Jacob's Ladder.
Oh, really?
I haven't. It's one that kind of slipped by me, but I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah, I could be misremembering it, but I feel like it is. Anyway, to wrap up some of our thoughts on Hereditary, I think we're all in agreement that it is a really striking horror film. There's a lot of people that are calling this a masterpiece. Lee, I know you mentioned you have a very warm feeling towards The Witch. Art, I know you've got a lot of other A24 movies that you like. Where does Hereditary stack against the modern horror classics to both of you?
Well, for me, it's pretty damn high. Like I said, I'm still fresh from it because I've given it one watch, but it's one of those movies that I can't get out of my head. Like, and very few movies do, you know, very few movies do that to me. So usually that's a good sign if I can't get it out of my head. And there's a lot of scenes in this movie that just really jump out at me, especially like the one where the dad catches on fire, and you know, there's questions that I still have about this movie, which I like. You know, I like that you could go out there and people have different opinions about certain scenes in this movie. To me, that's always a good sign. So, time will tell. If I'm being honest with you, my first viewing, I had some minor pacing issues. But
do you want to talk about those at all, or?
Yeah. I think with this movie, the first half of it focused more on the family drama, and then the second half. Then you started getting the really crazy out there type of stuff. I think with my second and third viewing, maybe it'll all come together a little bit more for me. I think there was more hills and valleys, and I was looking for kind of an ascension, and I didn't get that with the first viewing. But still, coming out of it, it's still like a solid 4 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, and
it's one that definitely requires a second viewing. So,
Art, any thoughts?
5 out of 5. It's my top. I mean, no.
I'm actually recording my review for Hereditary directly after I get done with this podcast, by the way.
Oh, great.
So I'm glad we did this discussion because it's, you know.
Flesh out some thoughts.
Right.
Thoughts are spinning like crazy, so you guys did me a favor.
I'm going to bring up one small qualm I have with the movie in that, for me, I think a few horror movies do this. I feel like Paranormal Activity might have done a similar thing where one of the twists is that this is a demon that we haven't brought up for the first half of the movie. And that's for me a little bit of a letdown that, you know, that's something that's a little bit less hinted at than the rest. I don't think that makes it bad or anything. It's just like, oh, I don't really care about King Paola or whatever his name is, but it's
he
still
is kind of mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's one thing I did like about it was it wasn't an ambiguous ending,
when you get your magnifying glass out.
It kind of reminded me of The Ritual, if you've seen The Ritual, where through that whole movie I thought the ending was going to be one thing, and then it turned out to be like very literal. And this was another one of those movies like, oh, okay, we're explaining the whole thing.
We're going there.
We're going there, yeah. So I kind of like that about it.
Yeah, I mean, I get that it's nice to have the full explanation of it. I think for me, like, it just makes it a little less self-contained, and I
wish it was
like
more
when
cohesive.
Yeah. But again, I still thought this was a phenomenally made film. I'm with Lee. I'm somewhere around a 4 out of 5 for this movie. So it's one of my favorites of the year, if not my favorite of the year so far.
Ooh, what is your favorite?
I mean, Annihilation's up there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh my God, Annihilation is my number 2, and I'm gonna be a total cliche. And I will say though, I did not expect this. Infinity War was my number 1, and that was the last movie I expected to be my number 1. It did things for a comic book movie that I did not expect. It went to different, especially for an MCU movie. You know, I expected a formula, and they really changed shit up. So, can I say? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You're good.
They changed stuff up. So, yeah.
Yeah. How many times did you see it in
theaters? That last act in Annihilation just floored me.
How many times did you see both in theaters? Annihilation.
Infinity War twice. I just bought Annihilation, so I'm going to give that a second watch here pretty soon.
All right, so we're going to get to our final segment of the week, the new to see, where we talk about what's new in theaters to streaming and on VOD, starting with what's new to streaming, because I need to get what's new in theaters up. June 14th on Netflix, Cutie and the Boxer and Marlon Season 1, a new Marlon Wayans TV show. Then on June 15th, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus and The Ranch Part 5. This is without Danny Masterson. June 16th, In Bruges, probably the best Martin McDonagh movie, as well as Grey's Anatomy Season 14 land on Netflix. June 17th, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5 is on Netflix. And leaving Netflix on June 16th, worth noting, unfortunately, Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown show is going to be off Netflix on June 16th. I know a lot of people have been catching up with that show recently. Also, Super, the James Gunn movie, leaves Netflix on June 16th. So make sure you watch those soon if you've been meaning to. HBO Now on June 14th, Chips. Did anybody see Chips?
No.
And on June 16th, The Mountain Between Us. Did anybody see The Mountain Between Us?
Since you're talking about streaming, I will say I did just stream I, Tonya.
Oh, yeah, that popped up on Hulu, I want to say.
Yeah, I watched it on Vudu, actually.
Oh, cool.
I loved it. I loved that they actually, because Tonya Harding was kind of a hated figure.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of faded into obscurity.
Yeah.
And I love that this movie maybe kind of showed you her side of things and maybe even made you feel for her.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, and very well acted by Margot Robbie. I mean,
yes. That court scene.
Mirror, and she's got to go through like 3 different emotions.
Oh, yeah.
That too, yeah.
She earned her money that day.
Yeah, she did.
Art and I talked about the movie a little bit.
Oh, we saw it together.
When it was in theaters.
Yeah, we saw it together.
We saw it together. Yeah,
that's right. I was in New York that day. Yeah.
Yeah. So we both were big fans of it as well.
Well, I was around during that whole scandal. I mean, I had just come in the military a couple years before.
Yeah.
This case, because you guys might have been too young to remember, but this case was all over the news. This was OJ. And
pre-OJ.
I turn on the news without seeing something about.
Well, that's
about
one of the fun
incident.
things about the movie too, is that it shows you that OJ happens like right after it.
Yeah, it does. But like I said, most people today don't realize that this was just the landscape of America at the time.
Yeah.
They were even, wanting to have this big showdown between Nancy Kerrigan and Tonya Harding. And so it's just so much hype. The media like ran with this case big time.
Yeah.
So you feel like your knowledge of it as a news sensation added to your enjoyment of it as the film?
Oh yeah, it was like opening up a treasure chest after 20
Totally,
years and finding all these other things that I never even, considered.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Doing some more streaming options. Amazon, June 15th, Goliath Season 2, that's the Billy Bob Thornton show. And June 18th, Suits Season 7. Catch up on your Meghan Markle or lady, whatever her name is now. Hulu, June 15th. They're adding The Second Mother, which is a movie about a maid in Brazil, and
I've seen this.
A phenomenal film. I didn't know you saw it, and I was going to recommend it, but yeah, it's a great film. I would absolutely catch up with that if you have Hulu. New in theaters this weekend, The Incredibles 2, the long-awaited sequel to Brad Bird's The Incredibles, as well as films like Tag, Race 3, Superfly, and in limited release, Gotti, Loving Pablo, and Eating Animals. Any of those movies jump out to either of you guys? I know I'm seeing The Incredibles too.
No, but are we doing our recommendations of the week?
Let's do that. Yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into that.
Yeah, so for me, it would be, if you're going out in theaters, I would definitely go watch Won't You Be My Neighbor. I believe it's finally expanding.
Yeah.
Definitely catch that documentary if you can. I have yet to even see it. I still missed it at Sundance. I missed it at the other film festival. It's the first time I'm giving y'all a blind recommendation from what I'm aware of, but there's all of it. All that I've heard about it growing. See the cardigan? You see the cardigan? It's honor of Mr. Rogers. Literally, I had bought this in honor of Mr. Rogers back in the day, senior year of high school with my buddy. That's what I would recommend if you're going out into theaters. If you're staying at home, you ain't even got to leave the site you're watching this on right now if you watch us on YouTube. Cobra Kai. No one told me this thing was good, boy. No one told me this thing smacked. I loved it.
Is it fantastic? But I keep hearing great things.
Bro,
Do I have to watch Cobra Kai?
It's good.
Everybody's recommending it, and I just wanted to skip it.
Come on now. I am the definitive one where I am telling y'all gotta watch it. If you've been hearing another talk about
Karate Kid fan. Like the first 2 Karate Kids, that I love those. That's my childhood, yo.
This movie takes that Barney Stinson from How I Met Your Mother theory about how he was actually the good one and Ralph Macchio was the bad one, and makes an entire series out of it, and it is fantastic and it works. I loved it.
That
I
takes
loved
balls,
it.
and that's amazing.
So yeah.
Awesome. Lee, do you have a pick for the week? Something that people can check out?
Well, I mean,
Give me-
I
give me
want to
anything.
highly promote Hereditary, of course, because
Dope.
Yeah.
Good.
to get exposure, and we've done that through this whole thing. But I will say, please go out and support Upgrade.
Hey.
Yeah.
Surprised the hell out of me. Lin-Manuel did such a great job in that. I know it's a premise that's been done quite a few times, but
Yep.
what it is, it's how it's done,
Hey.
and so well.
Yeah, there's some really creative cinematography they're showing off in that movie. No?
Like the choreography is just insane. Logan Marshall Green, I think Logan Marshall Green is one of the most underrated actors working today, and he looks a lot like Tom Hardy. I mean,
Yes,
Tom
he
Hardy.
does.
He's constantly being called Discount Tom Hardy.
Yes.
It's time to give the guy his due. Somebody needs to be Discount Logan Marshall Green because he is fantastic in this.
One day.
Yeah, the Invitation, Prometheus. I love Logan.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's in all those movies. Yep.
yeah, he's great.
All right, so Lee's picks are Hereditary and Upgrade, both in theaters now. I'm going to give you a pick in theaters and then one that's on streaming. In theaters, the documentary, another documentary, not just Won't You Be My Neighbor, that I've been trying to catch is the Notorious RGB documentary.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, Ruth Bader, or RBG documentary. Ruth Bader Ginsburg documentary. It's been getting a lot of great reviews. I'm very curious to check it out, and I think it's starting to expand a little bit to some more cities. So maybe check if it's playing by you, but definitely playing by you. The Second Mother. If you've got Hulu, you can check this movie out. It's a really phenomenal family story that talks about class and motherhood, and it's a story where this maid living in a upper class family's home has her daughter visit her, and then finds that the daughter relates a little bit more to the family than they do to the mom. It's a very, very interesting film. So I would check that one out if you have Hulu. But that's all for this week's show. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on my Twitter @ZShevich or on Instagram, also @ZShevich, and check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/multiplexshow. Lee, let the people know where they can find more from you.
Yeah, pretty much all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, is @Drumdums. You can find me there. And as well as YouTube, just type in Drumdums in your search box, and you will be led to my channel. So, and thank you so much for having me, guys. I genuinely appreciated this. You
total
guys
pleasure.
made it easy. So.
It was always fun having you here, man. We really enjoy this. So we'll put the links in the description down below if you want to check out Lee's channel. Art, where will people find more from you?
You can find me at the A to Z Show on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Of course, Let Me Explain. You can definitely go yell at me over there if you don't like the jokes that I'm telling. And people have done that, not realizing that they didn't get the joke, and that was my original joke. Yeah, definitely. You can check me out on all those things. Yell at me. I recommend movies. If you like them, then definitely let me know over there as well. But of course, every week you can catch me right here on the Intercut Podcast.
Yes, you can listen to every episode of the Intercut Podcast on iTunes, on SoundCloud, on whatever your favorite podcatcher is. I like Overcast. And then make sure you're subscribed not just to the audio podcast, but to the video feed on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/IntercutPod, where you can watch our bright, smiling faces as we run through the latest happenings in entertainment. Find new episodes of Intercut every Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. And also like our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. All of them are @IntercutPod to get updates throughout the week from both me and Art, as well as many of the guests we've had on the show. We'll be pumping some of Lee's stuff through the Twitter account as well. But until next time, thanks again for tuning in.
You know, this has been your first good one in a while.
Bro.